Doing a sound test real quick to make sure everything's going. I'm starting out with kick sound. Okay, getting ready to get everything started up. Doing a sound test real quick to make sure that sounds good. Create broadcast and share. Or in post. Create broadcast and share. Or sounds good. Okay, let's get to Rumble now. See how that's working out. Or Rumble sounds good. So now we go to YouTube. See how that's working out. YouTube sounds good as well. So it sounds like everything is up and running. I have Skype opened up for talk. If anybody wants to get on and be a part of the conversation, let me know. And if you're not on Skype or on Discord, then I can share the information with you in chat. Just say something in chat and I can post it there. I forgot to share this on Discord as well, so I'll get in there and get that done. Got 15 or 12 minutes until the hour, and that's when I am going to start the show, so I'm just setting up right now. But other than posting the times and everything on Skype and Discord, I do it on minds.com too, but other than that I usually don't get too caught up in it. So let me go ahead and get back on there. I posted everything on those contacts there. I guess I could share the link to this on in the chats. Let me go ahead and maybe get that going. Links. Oh shit. Boy, oh boy. So I posted the links in, or the link to the Skype into Kick, Rumble, and YouTube. I keep hitting inspect when I'm actually wanting to paste, so it's taking me a little bit of time. So if anybody wants to come into Skype and be a part of the conversation, they're more than welcome to. Today is going to be part 2 to the Dyatlov Pass incident that happened in Russia, the former Soviet Union. And if anybody wants to have a conversation about that, they are more than welcome to show up. I've got 9 minutes to go, so I am going to step away, get my coffee, and I will be back here in a minute and ready to go. Okay, I am back. Yeah, I have 4 minutes to go, but I figured I would get back on here and everything. I ended up getting everything up and running. It's been an interesting week. I ended up having a loss of electricity and stuff for the week, so things got a little bit hectic. It's like I said, I'm not starting until the top of the hour, so at that point I'll do my countdown and start recording. Put out the links if anybody wanted to join on Skype. You're more than welcome. I don't really make a habit of doing that. It's just whenever I remember to, I add them into the chat. So you guys are more than welcome to join if you want to. Appreciate any comments or feedback or anything like that. You're more than welcome to leave comments in the chat or in the comment section. I don't know for sure if they allow you to make comments in the comment section while the stream's going on. Not that experienced with the whole live chat thing. I'm a lot better than what I was when I first started, but not up to par, I guess you could say. Today I am doing the stream on Kick. I'm doing it on Rumble, X, and on YouTube. I was doing it on Odyssey, but I'm going to start backing off on doing streams for Odyssey unless it's Minds.com related. Usually most of the people that goes on Minds are they support Odyssey, but haven't been having very much luck when it comes to getting support on Odyssey, so I decided that I'm going to just limit it to my streams that pertain to Minds.com. So just to let everybody know, I've been trying to put it out there and everything. I've been trying to keep things somewhat separated, like with Wonderful World of Weirdness. That's actually just that actually something that John Clark started, and he's had a YouTube channel and a Facebook channel, and he started doing Odyssey too. So, and then I took over at the beginning of last year. So I've been trying to kind of keep it separate from, just exclusively on Minds or exclusively on YouTube. So that's basically what I gotta do. That cat's meowing. Hold on a minute. Okay, so here we are. Let's see now. We are at the hour. I'm going to do my countdown, and here we go. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of WWOW Talk. I'm Roger Hanson, and today we are going to continue where we left off last week with the Dyatlov Pass incident that happened in the former Soviet Union, Russia, back in the early 1900s. It's like I said, this is probably one of the biggest mysteries of the 20th century, if not the biggest mystery. Now, there was another incident that happened there, but I believe that was in the late 1800s with Nikola Tesla, where they there's speculations that he created a ray gun, the Tesla ray gun, and there was a whole bunch of trees and landscape there that had been knocked down without any explanation. It's not in the same region, but it is in Siberia, so that's the reason why I say this could be of the 20th century, because I'm not too sure if that happened in the 20th century or not. So, but that's what this is. This is going to be about the Dyatlov Pass. Last week I went through and I discussed the whole thing behind the indigenous culture that was there. They're the ones that was brought, that they were, there was allegations made that they could have possibly been involved with the deaths of these explorers, survivalists that ended up dying there at Dyatlov Pass, and they were the Munsee tribes. Now, the accusations that were made about them was eventually, let go of, but they did make accusations about them because they were an indigenous tribe, and they practiced paganism, and there was a situation that happened before that about with the Munsee and the Conti concerning their beliefs, and it was outlawed to practice it in the Soviet Union during that time, which caused problems with the Conti. Now the Conti ended up fighting against the Soviet Union, so there was a lot of hatred going on there between the Soviets and the Conti tribes. Now the Monty, I believe that they took the peaceful way out, and they're the ones who eventually were suspected of being a part of it. But eventually, those suspicions were laid to rest. Now, I went through a lot of on that, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but I did want to bring it back up because after I had done last week's episode, I went and I did my Ancient Histories stream, and I was doing all of the research and pulling everything back together, or pulling everything up on that, and it concerned Mount Fuji, and it just seemed odd because and it wasn't planned either, but like with this one, it has to do with the Dyatlov Pass incident, and the mountain that they were at was in English it would be called the Dead Mountain, and these tribes, the Munsee and the Conti, they worshipped at this mountain. Now later on, and mind you, like I said, I didn't plan this. This just happened. It also I started doing research on Mount Fuji because I've been wanting to do something concerning the suicide forest. So what I decided to do is, instead of just focusing on the suicide forest, I would point out Mount Fuji, because Mount Fuji, or the suicide forest, is just right there below Mount Fuji. So I went in there and I started doing the research, and I just found a whole lot of pagan there's a whole lot of paganism that could be involved with the things going on Mount Fuji, which, by the way, is worshipped by mountain worshippers. So that makes two mountain worshippers that I actually pulled up and wanted to do a show about. And I thought that was kind of interesting how that happened and played out. So basically what I am doing now is trying to figure out what's going on here. Actually, I think I'm having problems with my internet again, but I am having a weak signal. I'm gonna have to go ahead and double check and make sure everything's fine. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like everything's still going. So, but anyhow, with that all being said, it was just weird how it worked out. Now we got through there and we started discussing the actual remains, what was found whenever the search parties went out looking for this party of, mind you, experienced survivalists. These weren't amateurs; these were well experienced survivalists, and they were actually out there on their expedition so that they could earn their Class 3 certification as I believe they call it tourists, but it's basically their Class 3 for being a survivalist. And in the Soviet Union at that time, that was the highest level of certification that you could get there. So these were very well trained survivalists who knew their ways around. Now we went through some of the injuries and everything that these people were found to have had. I can go over some of the locations where they were found. The first group that was found within 1.5 kilometers away from the tent. Now, when they found the tent, and it was all, it looked as if somebody had cut the tent up from the inside. And what had happened is these survivalists had literally left the tent and split up into different directions, half clothed, with clothes missing, in the middle of Siberia, which, if you know anything about Siberia, you know that that's a bad thing. And this is during the winter time too, when snow was on the ground and everything. Well, the first group that was found 1.5 kilometers away. All right, and they wore minimal clothing, and they were found either barefooted or wearing only socks. Autopsies revealed hypothermia as the cause of death for these individuals. Now, after that, 2 months later, the remaining hikers were discovered in a ravine that was approximately 75 miles away from the others. Now, I was told a different story. I was told that the first group was only 2 of them, and they were found like 1.5 kilometers away, and then there's another group that was found of 2 that was found just a little bit farther off. But I'm not for sure how that actually what played out. So I want to do more research into that. But I was told that 2 groups were actually found before the third group was found 75 meters away. Now these were the ones that was kind of strange. And me and Mark, when he was here, we had this conversation about the condition that these bodies were found in. Now, according to what they said, that there were 2 of the people who were in this thing who suffered from broken ribs. Now, the train that's that's in that area where they were camped at didn't have any cliffs that were high enough that would be capable of causing that much damage to rib cages whenever from a fall or anything. And you wouldn't be able to crush your entire rib cage in from falling over. You know what I mean? That just wouldn't happen. So that was one of the issues that was brought up, and Mark brought up he brought it up that it could have been the weight of the snow. Now, that's I don't know for sure if the weight of the snow could do that within a matter of 2 months. It's a good theory, but then the other thing that came up that was pretty strange was there was one of the members of the expedition. Her name was Dubinina, and she had missing. Her eyes were missing, and her tongue was missing. Now, when they found her, her face was down into running water, like a little ravine, and they said that the water could have caused the eyes to dissolve. But then it went even further and said that with the tongue, though, it wouldn't have happened with the tongue. There was no way that water could have been responsible for her tongue dissolving. That's when Mark brought up the fact that it could have frozen and broken into pieces, which that would make sense too. But then you have to take into consideration that there would still be fragments of her tongue still somewhere in her mouth, and that led both again to another topic that maybe it could have been a fouled up investigation. That they went out there, they didn't do a proper investigation, and they didn't find all the evidence that they needed to find, which I can see that as being true too, because it's like back when I was younger, I remember finding out about Citizen X, one of the worst serial killers in history, and it took them until the fall of the Soviet Union before that murder those murder cases could be solved, and it was just decades and decades where it went unsolved, and the way they did the investigation was horrible. So with that being taken into consideration, I could understand that as being a fouled up investigation. Now, after that's when we decided to give it a break and come back and do the rest of part 2 of Dyatlov Pass. The Dyatlov Pass incident is what I called it. Now, with this one, what I wanted to get into was the fact that there were several anomalies at the site that added to the enigma. Now, there was traces of radiation that were found on some of the hikers' clothing. Now, witnesses at the hikers' funerals reported that the victim's skin had an unusual orange hue to it, and their hair appeared grayish. That's just witnesses that that gave their testimony basically of what they'd seen. That's probably not, solid evidence, but that is something that I did want to mention. Now, some of the bodies showed burns, they showed cuts and bruises, and these were cuts and bruises that were inconsistent with injuries typically caused by like an avalanche or exposure to the cold. These were deep cuts, deep wounds. Now, if I do understand you're out in the woods, you're out in the wild, it's cold, you're falling around, you'll get cuts and bruises. But if you take a look at the photos and all of the evidence that they showed the actual injuries, these were serious injuries that you just wouldn't get if you fell over or you bumped into something or you hit the ground, you know what I mean? These were like the knuckles. The knuckles themselves was where you could tell it looked like these people had been punching something, and when they punched it, they were all the way to the bone, you know what I mean? And also there's something else that I wanted to mention too that I didn't mention the last time. When they found these bodies, there was no signs of animals chewing on them or anything like that. These were not wounds that were inflicted on them after death. You could, and that was point blank stated in the investigation, as well as afterwards. Like, animals didn't come up on them and start eating on their bodies or anything like that. These were actual cuts and abrasions that happened to them while they were alive. So that's something that I forgot to mention in the last one, but I am mentioning it now. So I am keeping an eye on the chats and everything, so if anybody has any comments they wish to make, I am able to see them, and I will be able to have a conversation with you in chat if you wish to have a conversation in chat. So with that being said, let me go ahead and continue with what I was saying. Now, this is where we ended up getting into getting to the end of the last one. Now, one of the most widely accepted theories is that an avalanche forced the hikers to flee the tent in the middle of the night. Okay, so this is something that I heard a lot of people discussing this say, and I agree with them. Okay, so what it is basically they come up with this avalanche idea, saying that these experienced hikers who know how to deal with being out in the wild, especially in Siberia, who are trained. Like I said, they're very well trained. Here's an avalanche, and they decide that they're going to get up and run out of the tent after cutting holes into the side of it, by the way. But they're going to run out of the tent in separate directions with clothing missing. Okay, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't fit what's being said there. So these experienced hikers decided that they're just going to get up and run in fear out of this tent in separate directions instead of trying to regroup because they hear an avalanche. It just doesn't fit. And I mentioned it before too, that if you go in and you look at some of the old photos and all of the videos, you'll see that they had these skiing sticks, where where you ski with the sticks and stuff. What they did is they stuck these sticks down as perimeters around the tent before all the incident happened. Now, it was brought up too that if an avalanche did come through, those sticks wouldn't have still been standing. They'd have been knocked over. And clearly after the incident, when the search parties found the tent in the condition it was in, those sticks were still sticking up out of the snow. So in my opinion, that doesn't fit the profile. I mean, those sticks would clearly not have been still sticking up out of the snow when the search parties came to find them, and you can clearly see them there in the photos sticking up out of the snow. So that's my take on that. The injuries, such as the broken ribs, they could be explained by the pressure of the heavy snow, is what they're saying. But I'm still kind of iffy about it. Okay. Now, critics have also pointed out that the lack of significant snow buildup on the tents and the absence of external injuries inconsistent with avalanche weakens this explanation. You know what I mean? So basically, like, the injuries that they would have been able to, or that they would have sustained because of an avalanche, they weren't there. You know what I mean? There was no evidence from the actual damage or the injuries on the bodies to show that an avalanche would have been the cause. Now the injuries that were on these people were very extensive, but they apparently weren't the kind of injuries that you would have gotten if an avalanche had come through, you know. So, and I mean, personally, I've heard it, I've seen the video footage and stuff like that, and the photos that were taken afterwards, and there's just no way that could have been an avalanche that caused that. So, I mean, that's just my opinion on it. So, now, after that, it comes to the theory. Now, this theory, it suggests that strong, sudden winds, which are common in the area, could have caused panic among the hikers. If that was the case with like me or any other Joe Blow, I could believe that, but like these were well-trained individuals who were out there for class 3 certification as survivalists in Siberia. You know, they knew the dangers, the risks, they knew what they needed to do. I just don't see them getting scared by high winds and deciding that they're going to jump up and run in 3 different directions from the tent, you know. That just does not make sense to me whatsoever. So I really don't believe that. Now, the thing that really gets to me, I don't really want to stick on the high winds thing, because it's just for me it just doesn't match up. Like, they're trying to say that these high winds might have led them to believe that the tent was at risk, and it prompted them to flee hastily. I just don't see that, especially considering that there was cuts on the tent. Whether it was from the inside or the outside, it doesn't really matter when it comes to these high winds. Why would you take and cut winds or cut the tent and then run from it because you think high winds are coming? I mean, that's not really, that doesn't make sense to me. So I don't even want to go into that very deeply. It's really flimsy in my opinion. Now, after going over that, I do want to come back to what I had brought up a little while ago. Traces of radiation was found on the hikers' clothing. Okay. Now, the Soviets' military involvement has long been a focus on a lot of people who are into conspiracy theories. Some speculate that the hikers stumbled upon like a secret experiment, such as testing ground. They believe that it could have been testing for parachute mines, which they believe that was going on in the Soviet Union during that time, that there was secret testings for parachute mines where they'd parachute them out of the airplanes, and these parachutes would explode, you know, in the air or maybe on the ground, and they believe that could have been what caused their deaths. Now, this also supports some of the claims that were made of glowing orbs that were seen in the sky around the time of the incident too, and that could possibly link the military activity. I also want to mention too that one of the survivalists was able to take quick shots off before whatever happened, and inside of the photo that they were able photos they were able to recover, they did find a white glowing objects out in the distance. It was very blurry, so they didn't really get a good look at what it was, but there was glowing inside of the photos that were taken. So this is one of the ideas that, or one of the theories that was brought up about the military involvement, that there could have been some kind of secret experiment that was taking place and they stumbled upon it and they were killed. And the glowing orbs, it also fueled speculations about UFOs and or other paranormal phenomenon. Now, with me, from what I've been really learning about pagan beliefs too, I'm not saying that it did or it didn't happen, but this situation that happened there on a mountain called Dead Mountain and shamanism in that region, from mountain worshippers, there could have been something going on there too. I mentioned it before. I don't think that it was the Manti or the Monty or whatever, but it could have been the other group that may have done it, because there was a lot of bad blood between the Soviets and these people. So there is a chance that could have happened. You never know. It's if anybody has their feedback on that, let me know, and I will be more than happy to respond to it in the chat section or in the comment section later on. It is a pretty interesting way of looking at it if you take a look at it from the point of view of these people worship. They were mountain worshippers. They were pagans. They believed in shamanism. So there is a good chance of that. They were also into worshiping bears. So the whole crushed in chest thing, that's something that really sticks out to me, like something had thrown them maybe, or literally put them in a bear hug, and crushed their ribs. I also find it odd that, the last group that was found 75 kilometers away. So not only did they come out of this tent and split up into different directions, but one group was found 1.5 kilometers away, and then the last group that was found 75 kilometers away. That seems kind of odd to me. So it would, and why would those people who were 75 kilometers away decide that it was not safe to come back to the tent later on after? So there was something that actually happened at that tent where they said, no, we don't need to go there. Let's not go back to there. So that's something that really stuck out to me right there. So something did happen. It's just what, we'll never know. There's a good chance that we won't know. It really does stick out to me and make me wonder. It's a pretty fascinating thing to think about when you look at that. So now after that, there is also theories too about the Yeti. Some people believe that they could have encountered a Yeti or something of that kind. I haven't heard or been able to find anything that pertains to official or even any reports that say that a Yeti could have been involved with this. You know what I mean? there have been people that have brought it up, but I haven't really heard anything of old information that says that. So, you know, you never know. You never know. Maybe it could have been a Yeti. I have no clue. And there has been speculations about UFOs as well, and what's going on with all that. But that kind of, in situations like this, when you have people who believe in the paranormal and you have people who are into conspiracy, the UFO thing is always going to pop up. So you really never know, in my opinion. That's just the way I feel about that. You know, it always happens. So now, proponents of this theory suggest that the hikers may have encountered something otherworldly, leading to their sudden violent deaths. So they do believe that some type of alien ended up killing them, you know. So that's something there. Now another intriguing theory is that the infrasound generated by wind passing over the mountain could have caused psychological distress, including a state of panic among the hikers. Now, this could explain the irrational behavior, such as the fleeing the tent without proper clothing. I don't know how well that could stand up, you know. That right there, yeah, I don't know. Now maybe if they were like diving and they came up real fast out of the water, it could cause that, or if they submerged too fast, maybe that. But on a mountaintop with fast high winds, that's, I don't know, that is very, very it's a very interesting theory, but I don't know for sure if that could be the reasoning for irrational behavior. Now, maybe if a parachuted mine might have exploded close to them, compounded with the wind, the high winds. If high winds were even a part of the equation, you know, if that was even a part of it, then maybe in a combination of it. But I doubt that there would be parachuting mines at the same time as high winds moving through that pass at the same time. You know what I mean? It sounds pretty flimsy to me. So now another idea is that the group was attacked by a Yeti, okay, or some type of cryptid. That's what I just brought up. You know, I don't know for sure. Like I said about that, there have been reported sightings of Yeti, but I don't know if the Yeti sightings stretched all the way up to Siberia or not. So that's something that I was always under the impression that happened right more in the area of Mongolia and regions like that. I was never I never have heard of Yeti sightings ever taking place in Siberia, so maybe that's something that I could look for later on. So far I haven't found anything that says Yeti was sighted in any part of Siberia, but you know, the claim has been made. Now the theory was based on the severity of the injuries that the hikers had, you know, and also because of their apparent fear. Something caused it, a situation where they felt they had to cut the tent, and that right there, if the cuts came from the inside, that means they would have been trying to cut at something outside of the tent, you know what I mean? And maybe that would have caused them to freak out and run in other directions. I would say that they could have been led to the areas where they ended up dying, but there's no gunshot wounds, you know what I mean? Or there's no sign that they were ever well, I guess just no gunshot wounds, nothing to show that they were forcibly told to go there. Besides that, why would there be like multiple areas? Why would one party be found 1.5 kilometers away and then the other one 75 kilometers? So that to me kind of debunks it on that one. So you know that whatever chased them away from there had to have been out of fear. You know what I mean? They knew that whatever was there, they had to get away from. And I don't know, maybe it could have been a Yeti or some type of cryptid attack that caused it. Now, I did go through the severity of the stuff to them. So with that, I want to go back, make sure that I'm where I need to be first of all, because I want to go over some of these injuries. Now the injuries, when it comes to especially 4 of the hikers, the ones particularly that were found in the ravine, those were really severe and unusual for a scenario that involved hypothermia or an avalanche. Okay. Now, one of them, his name was Nikolai Thibeaux or Thibeaux Brignol. Now, his injuries, he had a severe skull fracture. Okay. Now, excerpts compared the force required to cause such an injury to that of a car crash. This level of trauma is not typically associated with an avalanche, as there were no external injuries or sign of crushing. So that was one of the things that was taking place. Then there was Lyudmila Dunanana. Now she was the one that I told you about with the tongue. Now she had several broken ribs. She had a missing tongue and eyes. They were missing. Now the missing tongue and eyes are often attributed to post-mortem scavenging of animals. However, the fractures to her ribs were so extreme that they could only be caused by an immense force akin to what might be experienced in a high-impact collision. So you have 2 people with a high-impact collision. Now, they also say for scavenging by animals, but I know that I've watched 2 documentaries on this, and both of these documentaries say that there was no evidence of animals scavenging the bodies before the search parties found them. Okay, so that's just not even a part of the equation, and you can clearly see that there's no bite wounds or anything on the bodies, because the videos that are put out on there are pretty extensive. They even have footage of the bodies where you can see what they look like when they were found. So if you're interested in checking that out, go for it. You'll see what I'm talking about. This is probably one of the most strangest incidents I've ever read on, and I was really glad that it was suggested in WWOW Talk, by the way. And I'm sorry that it took so long to get to this. So hopefully the guy who brought it up in chat hears this, and he hears me say I apologize for taking so long to do it, because I really did like this story, and I appreciate that. So the earlier the the earlier discovered bodies, the ones that were found before the others that were 75 kilometers away, that they exhibited fewer traumatic injuries but showed signs of death from hypothermia. However, the fact that they fled the tent barefooted and inadequately clothed suggests that they were responding to like a dire and immediate threat, like something was happening and they had to get out of there. Now, the injuries that they had weren't as extensive. That is true. But their knuckles and the abrasions on them. Okay, these weren't abrasions that were caused because they ran into a tree or something. You know what I mean? Or they fell on the ground. These were deep wounds that were caused to them, and the knuckles looked like they had literally punched something to the point where freaking their knuckles were exposed and the meat was freaking peeling away from their knuckles. I mean, these were serious injuries, and that's something that I wanted to point out too. Now, the avalanche theory has been criticized for several reasons. It was a lack of avalanche evidence. Now, the rescuers didn't observe significant snow accumulation around the tent. There was absolutely not enough snow that was there, and it was like I told you about the ski sticks. They were still sticking up around the tent. And that was the thing that really stuck out to me. That told me right there that there's no way that this could have been the cause of an avalanche. The tent itself was partially standing, which would be unlikely if it had been hit by an avalanche strong enough to cause the injuries observed. You know, for the injuries that these people had taken, the avalanche that would have caused that would have also knocked that tent down. It wouldn't have been standing. So that is another thing that I didn't mention, but it is true. There's no way that tent could have been up. And this wasn't anything that was stoutly built. It was just an average tent. It was a pup tent, don't get me wrong. But it would have come down. Now, avalanches typically cause external injuries, such as bruising or abrasions alongside fractures. In this case, many of the injuries were internal, with no corresponding external trauma. So there was damage on the inside and not on the outside. The tent was cut open from the inside, suggesting panic. Recent investigations and theories have also suggested that maybe this tent wasn't cut from the inside either. I just recently, within the last couple of years, seen a documentary where a woman in Russia had done her investigation years after it had happened, and she said that the way that the stitching is on the tent and everything, and the way that it looked with the cutting, there was a way that it could have possibly been from the outside as well. It's been a while since I've seen it, but that's one thing I did want to point out. I thought I'd have time to pull up more information about that, but I've had some serious issues this week. Anything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. I ended up, of all things, losing my electricity because of a snowstorm, which is kind of ironic, I guess. It came through North America. It was the big one they were just talking about. It started out in Kansas City. By the time it hit us in southern Illinois, it wasn't as strong, but it was able to cause ice covering the trees and causing blackouts all over the area. So I've been having a pretty interesting week, needless to say. So now if the hikers did believe that they were in an avalanche and it was imminent, they would likely have taken more clothes and footwear before fleeing, rather than leaving unprepared in sub-zero temperatures. Now, these, like I said, were very highly trained survivalists. You know what I mean? I don't see them doing that without there being a logical reason in that kind of situation. I really don't see that. So now in 2020 there was an investigation. It was reopened by the Russian government. It was attributed to the accident, and they attributed the accident to a slab avalanche, a smaller and more localized avalanche. However, even this explanation leaves several questions unanswered. Okay, there was traces of radiation found on the hikers, on the hikers' clothing that weren't explained. Now, while some people argued that this could have been related to their work in technical fields, it also adds a layer of mystery. I know that one of the people that was part of the expedition had previously been working in a facility that had a nuclear fallout. We always hear about the one that happened in Ukraine all the time, but a lot of people aren't aware that also happened earlier in another incident that had happened. And they say that fall off from the radiation at that area when he was working there could have been on the clothing that he was wearing when they were going on the expedition. And I know that they said that, but then there was 2 people that was found with radiation on them. There wasn't one person. And besides that, I don't think that level of radiation would have remained on him for the amount of time, because I believe it was well over a year before he went on this expedition. I'm not quite sure about that. So, but it does seem odd that after they did the radiation test, they did find radiation on 2 of them. Only one of the people that was involved in the expedition was actually working for a nuclear facility before the expedition. So that's what was really fishy about it to me. The footprints leading away from the tent suggest the group was moving at varying speeds and directions, inconsistent with an organized escape from an avalanche. The hikers' injuries and their state, in the state of their bodies suggests that they may have survived for hours after leaving the tent, which further complicates the avalanche hypothesis. So that's another thing that a lot of them don't want to take into consideration. Like, the bodies were found 75 kilometers away, so how was it that an avalanche was able to do that, and then they were able to get out of the tent with their with no socks or anything like that, and then make it 75 kilometers away? So that kind of throws the whole avalanche thing, down the sewer. And this all just seems, and it does, it's a recurring buildup of, military cover-up. Like, something has to be explained that they don't want the general public to know about, you know what I mean? And the oddest part is this new investigation took place in 2020, only 5 years ago. And they come back out with another, mini avalanche theory. Instead of it being a big avalanche theory, it's a mini avalanche theory. So it just keeps building up and building up. You know what I mean? Now, given the severity of the injuries and the lack of alignment with natural explanations, many researchers and enthusiasts have turned to other theories. Now, testing of parachute mines or other experimental devices could explain the concussion injuries without external trauma. So, if they were in the tent in these parachute mines did frickin' go off nearby them, it could have caused an external trauma to them. So I don't know how true these parachute mine experiments really are. This is new to me. I actually heard about it through this right here, but before that I've never even thought about, the Soviets doing secret parachute mine experiments anywhere. I've never even thought of people doing that in the United States even, you know what I mean? Parachuting mines out. So it's something that I really do think I should probably check into to find out about it. It's just really odd. I've never even thought about that before. Now, the radiation and reports of glowing orbs in the sky also aligns with that theory as well. Radiation, I don't know if mines would set off radiation levels, not unless they were radioactive. That's kind of, I don't know. Like I said, I would have to do a little bit more research into that, because I doubt that any just ordinary landmine that's being parachuted out of an airplane could emit radiation and cause that kind of trouble. Now, if these were landmines with radiation in it, that would be different, and even that way, with what I've known so far about radiation, it would have to have been some kind of dirty bomb. And you would think that a dirty bomb would have been picked up by a Geiger counter, so that right there, I don't know too much if that would stick, that's just my take on it. It's like I said, if you have any theories on that and you feel like discussing them, put them in the comment section. I'd be more than happy to hear it. I am, like I said before, I am keeping track on the chat, so if you guys do have something that you want to put your 2 cents on, say it, and I will say it on stream. So I am here, and I am reading the chat section, so you're more than welcome to leave a comment. I put the link inside there for the Skype. If you want to come in and you want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to. Just click on that. You don't have to sign in as an account. You can just go in as a guest and say your piece, stick around and talk about it if you want, or just say your piece and leave. It's up to you. Now, the whole thing about the theory involving infrasound or even paranormal phenomena, it's been it's been used to explain the hikers' irrational behavior and their unusual injuries. Now, I try not to put my input on a lot of that when it comes to the paranormal phenomenons. The infrasound, I just don't know. That would be a lot. That's kind of like, and I know a lot of people use it as a joke these days, but it's kind of like, do you remember back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, when everybody used to joke about the speakers that were so loud it could blow the clothes off of women? They used to have it on there. It was big, it was kind of a funny joke that was around a lot of people who were into bass, and that's kind of like what they're talking about right there. That's really pushing it, is what I'm saying. For infrasound to be able to do that, it would take a lot of sound. It would have to be really, really big. So now there's also another thing that they said that it had to do with interpersonal conflict. That's something too that they mentioned, where these people could have been fighting against one another. Now, the thing of it is, though, that would make sense, but the only problem is there's two people that were found together. That was 1.5 kilometers away. Then there's two other ones that was just a little farther off, that were found together. And then after that, the remaining were all together, buried under snow 75 kilometers away from there. And they were found later on. Apparently, they had made it 75 kilometers away from the tent and were pretty much gathered together and froze to death, supposedly. But there was no inner conflict. They were actually grouped up. There was no one person by themselves. You know what I mean? So that's not really, in my opinion, very logical. The interpersonal conflict in the animal attacks was less supported by the evidence anyhow, but it has been floated to explain, the combination of injuries and the chaotic flight from the tent. So it has been used as to a certain degree as a possibility. You know what I mean? But it's not. To me personally, I don't feel as though it's a good enough explanation for it. The initial Soviet investigator concluded in May of 1959 that what attributed to the deaths was caused by natural forces, without specifying any further details. But later on, though, classified documents and subsequent inquiries have all failed to provide definitive answers, to what actually took place. Now, Yuri Krevinskenko, I'm really bad with Russian names, but his clothes were the ones that were reported to have elevated levels of radiation. This was puzzling because there was no immediate environmental sources of radiation in the area. They didn't find any in the area. And that goes back to the whole thing about the parachute mines. I doubt very seriously that there was any type of radiation that could have been emitted from parachute mines. And if there was like a dirty bomb that they were experimenting on, you'd still find radiation in the area, which they didn't find. Then we come to Alexander Kalavatov. He had similar traces of radiation that was detected on his clothes, though it was at a lesser extent than what Krevneskov's was. Now, the process of radiation, or the presence of radiation, has led to questions about whether the hikers were exposed to a radioactive source before or during the expedition. Yuri Krevneskenko had previously worked at the Merrick plant, and the Merrick plant is the one that eventually had a nuclear disaster, which isn't very, very much heard of. This was a big, big secret that the Soviet Union wanted to keep quiet, and they were able to keep it quiet for a while until they had the big one, but this one happened first, and this is what really adds on to the mystery, because it could have been a failed investigation, but it could have also been a cover-up because the Soviets didn't want it coming out what had happened at Merrick, the Merrick plant, and finding a body or two bodies with radiation on them, and one of the people that was a part of the expedition also by chance worked for Mayak, the Mayak plant. That could have caused problems with it. The Soviet nuclear facility that experienced one of the worst nuclear accidents in history, the Kishim disaster, and that was in 1957. This accident released significant amounts of radiation into the environment, and he was actually one of the employees who worked there. It's possible that Krevneskov's involvement in the cleanup efforts is cleanup efforts or work at the plant is what led to some of the residual contamination on his clothing. However, the fact that the contamination was still detectable years later during the 1959 expedition, it raises questions about whether this was residual or from a new source, you know what I mean? Because this happened years after that, so why would that contamination still be on his clothes that far ahead of time? So was it because of that disaster, or was it from a new source? That's another question that has been brought up. Now, it is plausible that traces of radiation from his clothing were residual from his work at Mayak. However, this doesn't explain why Kalavatov's clothing also showed contamination unless he was similarly exposed. Okay, so that's what kind of throws that out the door, because it wasn't just him, it was the other guy that had the radiation too on his clothing. So you had two people who had nuclear radiation that was coming off of their clothes, which also brings us back to the UFO thing and, things of that nature. Or maybe a military experiment that they had stumbled into. It could have been anything. That's what's so mysterious about this situation. The plot thickens when you look into this stuff. So, one of the most prominent theories is that the hikers may have stumbled onto a site of covert Soviet military testing. Now, that could be a site such as radioactive weapons or parachute mines. Now, radioactive weapons I could understand, but those whole parachute mines, my ear's itching. This whole parachute mines, if it was parachute mines, it would have to be something that had radiation coming off of it, in my opinion. That's just my take on it. This could explain both the radiation and the glowing orbs, like I said before. Some also suggest that the contaminated clothes might have come from materials reused or repurposed from industrial or military sites, and that isn't uncommon, or it wasn't uncommon in the Soviet Union. They have found cases where clothing that was used on these sites were actually repurposed and given out to people, you know what I mean? So I also wanted to make a note of the area around Dyatlov Pass. It's not known for significant natural radiation sources. But some have speculated that localized radiation deposits could exist. But this theory lacks strong geological evidence. There's absolutely no evidence that shows that there's any significant natural radiation sources in the area. The discovery of radiation led to a heightened scrutiny on the incident. Okay, some theorists argue that this detail points to state secrecy and military involvement, especially given the Soviet Union's reluctance to fully disclose the information. Now, it also raises suspicions that the government may have been involved in a cover-up. And I could see them wanting to cover this up, especially after the radiation was detected, because it did cause a problem. They have footage of the burial ceremonies, and when these people were actually put to rest, the turnout was amazing. A lot of Soviets showed up for this. This was something that was very serious to them, and a lot of people took it serious. Just put it to you that way. When they made the plaque, they set it up, and a lot of people still make pilgrimages to the site in memorial to these people's death. So this isn't just, something bad that had happened. There's a lot of people who still believe that these people were wrong, and they actually make regular pilgrimages to this place. Just so you know that still does take place today. Now, in 2019, the Russian government did reopen the case. They focused on natural explanations. The official conclusion in 2020 attributed the incident to an avalanche and poor visibility during the hiker's escape. While this explanation addresses some aspects of the mystery, it has yet satisfied all the researchers or the public. And to me, I agree. I had a conversation with Jaffe on Minds Roundtable, and it's true. This is probably never going to be solved, but it's still something that's worth a good conversation. What's your thoughts on this? What's my thoughts on this? It does, bring up questions, and it's just a good thing to have a conversation about, and to, you know, well, what do you get from the whole story in the first place? What's so strange about it? It doesn't really. It really doesn't have to be solved. It just brings questions up in the individual, and it's something that people can actually have a conversation about. And that's one thing that I really do enjoy about this stuff. I do feel for the people who died in this situation, and I'm not saying that something like this is something that you should really get off on or nothing, because people did die from it, but it also it's a mystery. It's something that's worth looking at, and then telling yourself, look, man, weird stuff happens all the time. They're still talking about, Jack the Ripper. What happened with him? Who was the killer? There have been people that have been investigating that since the day it started, and they're still investigating it today. And that's what it's about. It's about trying to solve something, So it's like I said, if you guys have anything that you want to add to this, you can add it in the comment sections of this video. I will always answer you back, as long as it's not, anything that's out of place. Don't be a dick, you know what I mean? Be respectful. And if you have your feedback on what you think took place there, or if you have any questions concerning it, put them in the comment section. I love having conversations in the comment sections. I really do. I enjoy that more than I do the likes and subscribes and all that stuff. I would just love to have a good conversation. If you've ever noticed in the chat sections, I always have conversations when I'm on other people's shows. I love getting on the chat sections and just chatting away. So don't ever think you can't have a conversation with me, guys, because I love them. So with that being said, I guess I've covered this pretty good, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to test this audio to make sure that everything came out the way it was supposed to too. I'm just really glad that I was able to actually do this tonight. This has been a crazy week. I hope you guys did enjoy this. I'm kind of off guard right now. I have to get back into the routine and get everything back up. My whole week has just been interesting. Trying to get everything back and organized is something else. It's only 3 days that it's happened, but it still feels like it's like a year. Not even a year. I'd say about a month. Like everything's been off for a month. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I am 5 minutes away from being at an hour and 15 minutes on the recording, and I have covered everything that I wanted to bring up in the topic, or the talking points, so I'm good to go. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.